The thunder of 99 Harley-Davidson engines shattered the evening calm of Pine Ridge's Main Street, a sound that reverberated through steel and bone. They moved like a tightening noose, encircling 5 men in expensive suits who stood frozen outside the Mountain Trust Bank. At the center of this formation sat an old man with iron-gray hair, astride a meticulously maintained motorcycle. His voice, when it came, carried the weight of decades of command and danger. You picked the wrong town, the wrong people, and definitely the wrong time. His hand rested on an old Colt at his hip as the circle drew tighter. 6 days earlier, Daniel Stone's weathered hands moved with surgical precision over a vintage motorcycle engine in his workshop. Morning light flooded through the windows of Stone's garage and cafe, illuminating walls covered with military memorabilia. At 67, Daniel moved with the fluid efficiency of someone half his age, his scarred fingers disassembling the carburetor with practiced ease. The organization was military precise, nothing out of place, a habit formed long ago in places he tried not to remember. The door chimed. Daniel didn't look up. "Coffee's fresh, Tom." Sheriff Tom Wade poured himself a cup. "How'd you know it was me?" "Your left boot heel needs replacing. Makes your walk distinctive." Tom chuckled. "Once a SEAL, always a SEAL, I guess." "Former SEAL, Daniel corrected, finally glancing up. "Now I'm just an old man who fixes bikes and makes decent coffee." "Speaking of which, you hear about those developers?" "Outfit called Summit Properties. They're meeting with the town council tomorrow." Daniel's hands paused briefly. "I heard something. Rich folks wanting another luxury resort. That's the pitch. But something feels off about them." Tom hesitated. "Thought you should know." After Tom left, Daniel walked to a cabinet in the corner. Inside a lockbox sat his service pistol, kept in immaculate condition. Beside it lay a small leather notebook filled with names and numbers, some crossed out, others marked with stars. Daniel closed the cabinet without opening the lockbox. Not yet. Outside, Pine Ridge went about its morning routine. The town of 12,000 souls, nestled between rolling hills and pine forests, had changed little in 40 years. Daniel had chosen it 15 years ago for its quiet, for people who minded their own business and didn't ask about nightmares or why he always sat with his back to walls. A familiar engine sound drew his attention. A red Ford pickup pulled to the curb, and Eleanor Martinez stepped out, moving with athletic grace. At 38, she wore jeans and a flannel shirt, her dark hair in a practical ponytail. She'd arrived 6 months ago, starting a delivery service that quickly became essential to the community. "Morning, Daniel. Please tell me you have coffee that doesn't taste like motor oil." Daniel allowed himself a small smile. "Morning, Elena. Help yourself." As she poured coffee, he noticed the calluses on her hands, not the kind from driving, but from weights and weapons. Someone trained. He'd noticed other things too, how she scanned rooms upon entering, how she always knew where the exits were. Daniel had his suspicions about Elena, just as he suspected she had her own about him. Neither asked. "You hear about these resort developers?" Elena asked casually. "Tom mentioned it. I delivered papers to City Hall yesterday, saw their proposal. Massive project for a town this size." She sipped her coffee. "The head guy, Vincent Drake, has security types with him. They look ex-military, not the good kind." This made Daniel look up. "How would you know what ex-military looks like?" Their eyes met, silent understanding passing between them. The conversation was interrupted by Martha, Daniel's baker, who arrived with fresh gossip. "You two hear about those city folks trying to buy the Patterson property? Offered 3 times market value. When old Patterson turned them down, they got pushy. He said one had a gun under his jacket." Daniel and Elena exchanged glances. "Town council meetings tomorrow at 7, Martha continued. "Whole town's gonna be there." After Martha left, Elena closed her laptop. "I should go." Got deliveries out to the Johnson place. As she left, Daniel noticed how she checked the street both directions before getting in her truck. Definitely trained. But for what? Elena gripped the steering wheel as she navigated the forest road to the Johnson ranch. Her mind wasn't on driving. 6 months in Pine Ridge had been exactly what she and Sophia needed after everything that happened after her husband Robert's death. She'd chosen this town carefully, small enough to stay under the radar, far enough from her previous life. A black Escalade appeared behind her, moving fast. Elena frowned. This road led nowhere except the Johnson Ranch. The SUV closed the distance, then cut sharply in front of her, forcing her to brake hard. 2 men emerged, both in expensive suits that didn't quite hide athletic builds. The taller one had a military haircut and moved with practiced awareness. Elena rolled down her window but kept the engine running. "Problem, gentlemen?" "You're Martinez delivery," the taller man stated. "You're headed to the Johnson place. We represent Summit Properties. Mr. Drake would like to speak with Mrs. Johnson about her property. Mrs. Johnson isn't expecting visitors." The man leaned closer. "Listen, delivery girl, we're going to have a chat with Mrs. Johnson. You can either help us or stay out of our way." Elena felt old instincts surfacing, the assessment of vulnerabilities, the quickest way to neutralize 2 opponents. She forced them down. She wasn't that person anymore, for Sophia's sake. "Crystal clear," she replied evenly. "Now move your vehicle." They backed up, letting her pass, but followed at a distance. At the Johnson Ranch, elderly Mrs. Johnson answered the door with a shotgun. "Those men following you want my property," she said. "They've been calling every day." The Escalade pulled up. The 2 men approached, and the taller one pulled out a folder. "Mrs. Johnson, we're prepared to pay $5 million for your property." The answer is no. "This ranch stays in my family." The shorter man stepped forward. "Mrs. Johnson, you're an elderly widow. Be reasonable." "I believe Mrs. Johnson made her position clear," Eleanor interjected. "Stay out of this," the shorter man snapped, then moved with unexpected speed, slapping Eleanor hard across the face. The blow stung, but Eleanor stood her ground. Behind her, Mrs. Johnson cocked the shotgun. "That's assault. Get off my property." The taller man, who'd introduced himself as Kyle Bennett, smiled coldly. "You should be more careful who you cross, Ms. Martinez. Accidents happen in small towns." After they left, Elena touched her bruised cheek. These men were dangerous, more than typical aggressive developers. The town council meeting was packed. Daniel secured a spot at the back, with clear view of the entrance. He spotted Elena across the room, the faint bruise visible on her cheek. Their eyes met briefly. Vincent Drake entered with his team. He was tall, distinguished, with the confident bearing of someone used to getting his way. His 2 security men positioned themselves with practiced efficiency. Daniel studied them professionals, though not top tier. Drake's presentation was slick, a luxury resort, golf course, shopping complex, promising jobs and economic transformation for Pine Ridge. But Daniel noticed the calculated expressions, the subtle signals between Drake and his security. This was no ordinary developer. When Mrs. Johnson stood to recount yesterday's assault, Drake handled it smoothly, denying knowledge and promising investigation. Classic manipulation. After the meeting, Daniel received a text from an unknown number. "Need to talk. These people aren't who they claim. Meet at your place after." Back at his garage, Elena arrived 20 minutes later. She pulled out a small device and swept the room for listening devices. "Paranoid?" Daniel asked. "Cautious. After today, I wouldn't put surveillance past Drake." They sat at a table, and Elena spoke quietly. "You were military. Navy, you? Army, Special Forces support, Afghanistan, among other places." Daniel nodded. "You think Drake is intelligence? Former CIA or private contractor with agency connections?" She pulled out her phone, showing him documents. Summit Properties has developed 6 locations over the past decade, each near the Canadian or Mexican border. Same pattern: aggressive land acquisition, mysterious accidents befalling holdouts. Daniel studied the information. Money laundering, trafficking, maybe both. That's my assessment. The resort is cover for moving contraband across borders. She leaned forward. And there's something else. My husband was killed 3 years ago. Official story was random carjacking, but he'd stumbled onto something, a connection between a defense contractor and a cartel. I followed the money. It led to Vincent Drake. So you came here looking for him? No, I came here to disappear, until he showed up. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. 2 men in a black SUV outside our apartment. I'm scared. Daniel was already moving. I'll drive. As they raced through the night, Daniel made a call on a prepaid phone. Rob, it's been a while. I'm calling in the protocol. Location. Pine Ridge, Montana. Involves a man named Vincent Drake. Possible ex-agency running smuggling operations. How many do you need? Everyone who can make it. They'll come. For you, they'll come. At Elena's apartment building, the black Escalade sat waiting. Daniel pulled up, and they approached the vehicle. The men inside reached for weapons, but Daniel was faster, his Beretta pressed against the driver's window. Unless that's a greeting card, keep your hands visible. The men complied, stepping out. Mrs. Martinez, no need for this. Mr. Drake just wanted us to ensure you got home safely. By terrorizing my daughter. A third motorcycle pulled up, a gray-haired man who introduced himself as James Walker, Daniel's new farm security consultant. More motorcycles appeared. The men from the SUV reassessed the situation, noting the newcomers' confident stances and concealed weapons. Here's what's happening, James said calmly. You're leaving. Any further threats will be met with appropriate response. We're very good at consequences. After they left, Daniel and Elena secured Sophia with friends and turned Elena's apartment into a command center. She pulled up files on Summit Properties, 6 properties, all near borders, all with suspicious financial records. We need to get inside their operation, Elena said. Over the next 2 days, similar scenes played out across Pine Ridge. Every time Summit's representatives tried to pressure property owners, Daniel's team appeared motorcycle-riding veterans who positioned themselves as farm managers, security consultants, distant relatives. By noon of the 2nd day, reports filtered back to Drake that his acquisition efforts were being systematically blocked. Sheriff Wade confronted Daniel. Want to explain why I have reports of armed men on motorcycles all over my jurisdiction? Daniel provided a carefully edited version, enough context without implicating Tom legally. They explained their suspicions about Summit's smuggling operations and the evidence they'd gathered. 2 days, Tom finally said. Get me something solid I can take to state authorities. After that, I do this by the book. The next morning, Elena was surveilling Drake's temporary headquarters when she saw increased activity. Staff loading documents, security establishing defensive positions. They were preparing to evacuate. Drake's cutting his losses, she reported, focusing on securing an immediate shipment. The team reconvened at a hunting lodge 15 miles outside town. 73 former operators had arrived, answering Daniel's call. They'd identified 3 trucks crossing from Canada, scheduled to arrive at dusk. Daniel addressed the assembled team. Precision, discipline, documentation. We channel them to an intercept point and preserve evidence until federal authorities arrive. Sheriff Wade made the call to the DEA. Tactical teams would arrive within 3 hours. But then intelligence came in. Drake had changed the shipment route, using Forest Service roads to bypass their interrupted corridor. They'd be arriving the same time as federal agents. We forced them onto our terms, Daniel said. Block alternative routes, leaving only one viable path right to where federal authorities will be waiting. Teams deployed to establish roadblocks. As the sun began to set, the shipment appeared 3 trucks with Canadian markings, met by Drake's convoy. Through careful channeling, they directed the combined group toward the intercept point. The convoy entered a narrow pass where Daniel's team waited. A fallen tree blocked their path. Drake's security team took defensive positions, then a black SUV arrived late, dragging a struggling figure between 2 guards. Daniel's blood ran cold. "Sophia, change of plans," he said immediately. "We move now." 99 motorcycles materialized from the forest, forming a complete circle around the trapped convoy. Daniel, Elena, and Rob rode to the front. "Let the girl go, Drake. It's over." Drake stood beside his vehicle, calculating. Insurance for safe passage. "That's my daughter," Elena said coldly. "There's nowhere you could run." "We understand who you are," Daniel said. "Former CIA, went private sector, using agency connections for smuggling networks. Federal authorities are 3 minutes out. The standoff stretched. Daniel maintained eye contact, searching for weakness. "You're out of options. Release the girl, surrender, and I'll ensure you're taken into custody by legitimate authorities." Drake glanced at his watch, then his increasingly nervous security team. Finally, he gave the order. "Release the girl." Sophia ran to her mother. Daniel ordered weapons down as sirens wailed in the distance. Federal vehicles appeared, Sheriff Wade leading DEA and FBI tactical teams. As Drake was taken into custody, Tom approached Daniel. "Perfect timing," Daniel observed. "You should make yourself scarce before they start taking statements." Daniel, Elena, and Sophia rode away as federal agents processed what would become one of the largest smuggling busts in Montana history. They stopped on a ridge overlooking Pine Ridge, watching the town settle into evening. "It's beautiful," Sophia said quietly. "Yes, worth protecting," Daniel agreed. Along forest roads, the other riders departed, returning to their quiet lives, their final mission complete. As they rode into town, Daniel felt something settle within him. Not closure, but continuation. The quiet life hadn't ended, it had evolved. And somewhere in that evolution, he'd found not just peace, but belonging. Not just safety, but purpose. Behind them, 99 motorcycles disappeared into the Montana twilight, their legacy remaining in a town preserved, a future secured, and shadows once again retreating before the light.